questions.
Thank you, Secretary Menezes. Secretary Dabbar, let me address my first question to you, and it is this, that last year the House passed a Science Committee bill. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It was called the Department of Energy Research and Innovation Act. And it's my understanding that a lot of the provisions in that bill, such as prioritizing advanced nuclear reactor infrastructure and opening up our national labs to be more readily acceptable and accessible to industry, are provisions that could be implemented, for lack of another word, unilaterally by the Department of Energy. Would you give me a sense of whether you think the DOE will implement some of these reforms themselves or not? And if so, which ones?
Thank you, Chairman Smith. No, absolutely. I reviewed that bill, have a summary of it in front of me, we certainly support the points that were raised, and we look forward to working with you on those specifics if you want to reintroduce it here. And we're glad to work with your staff on that. But in general, we support the points that you raised around management of the labs and the direction there.
And you do think you'll be able to implement some provisions in the bill yourself, then?
Yes, we actually have quite a bit of flexibility, I think, on operational aspects that were raised, and look forward to doing that. And we have done that on many of those points.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Menezes, you mentioned in your testimony that DOE has a policy of American energy dominance. Give us a little bit more in the way of detail as to how you hope to achieve that and maybe even what it means.
Well, thank you for the question. Within energy dominance, what we mean by that is that we are able to utilize our vast resources in ways to help other countries to have access to energy that they otherwise might be getting from countries that not necessarily share their best interest. So, you know, with the work of the labs, we were able to develop technology improvements in the hydraulic fracturing, for example. So now we have, we're the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas. Since we have as much as we have, we can now develop policies, you know, to export those energies. And it helps our allies not to be dependent on other countries for sources of energy. So in that context, I mean, we have a new historical geopolitical reality where the U.S., you know, can actually be the country that other countries go to for energy.
And when you talk about other countries coming to us for energy, what countries do you see as increasing their demand for U.S. supplied energy?
Well, we see it really across the globe. So, for example, on LNG export facilities, for example,
right.
You see countries in Asia, you see countries in Europe, you see countries in South America, potentially, that would like to have us export LNG to them. In coal, you have countries in Central Europe that have been receiving some of our coal exports. So there are, you know, and then oil, Congress lifted the ban on export of oil, and as such now we can export into the global markets of oil.
Okay, good. If I have time, I'm going to come back to that subject. But another question for Secretary Dabbar, and it is this, that over the years there has been some pretty strong and steady support for the Fusion Basic Research Program. And yet in the proposed budget, that program is subjected to some cuts. And I just wondered if you could explain to us why a program that has gotten such good support in the past and I think can be justified has been cut.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. I can't comment to the specifics of the last, the budget proposal, but the fusion energy area and office, program office, and the Department Office of Science is very important. We have a lot of support across multiple labs. Obviously, we do, one of the main labs is Princeton Plasma, and we continue to fund that as a primary focus, both of fusion but also plasma science. We also do quite a bit of work at Oak Ridge and also at Livermore on the laser side. Obviously, we have been doing some funding over time at ITER, which is a separate topic internationally, but we do continue to focus on that as one of the main program offices.
So you think our research is going to continue. What about our international obligations?
So our main international obligation is obviously ITER. The last budget proposal was zero. I think, as you probably know, ITER's had some challenges in the past, where the initial proposal for the program, for the whole of the program from all the countries, was a little over $6 billion, and now it's currently up to $65 billion. So it's moved quite a bit in terms of project costs. The administration is reviewing that as part of an overall nuclear review policy.
Okay.
And we have yet to reach a conclusion on a cross-department basis on exactly our intent around funding and recommendations around funding. Okay. So that is ongoing and is an active part of what I'm engaged with.
Thank you, Mr. Dabbar. And the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Beasley, is recognized for his questions.
Thank you, Mr.